Rain lashed against the windows, wind howled like a banshee, lightning split the sky, momentarily illuminating the old house on the hill. It stood alone, a silhouette against the raging storm. Inside, Lily sat by the fire, a book in her hand, trying to ignore the sounds of the storm. She had only been in the village a week. It was a quiet place, almost too quiet. The villagers were friendly, but their smiles seemed strained, their eyes holding a mixture of pity and fear when they looked at her, at the house. She had dismissed their warnings about the house being haunted as mere superstition. Now, as the storm raged around her, she wasn't so sure. The house creaked and groaned, shadows danced on the walls, and every gust of wind seemed to whisper her name. Lily tried to concentrate on her book, but the words swam before her eyes. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Lily had fallen in love with the house the moment she saw it. It was a grand old place, full of character and history. The realtor had been hesitant to show it to her. "It's been on the market for a while," he'd said. "Not everyone's cup of tea." But Lily had seen past the peeling paint and the overgrown garden. She saw the potential, the beauty that lay hidden beneath years of neglect. She could imagine herself curled up by the fire, a cup of tea in her hand, surrounded by books. It was the perfect place to escape the city, to start a new life. She had ignored the whispers in the village, the stories of the previous owners who had left in the dead of night, their faces pale, their eyes filled with terror. She didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in logic, in reason, and yet, as the storm raged on, she couldn't help but feel a shiver run down her spine. The village was small, everyone knew everyone else's business. Lily had quickly become the subject of much speculation. Who was this woman who would dare to live in the house on the hill? The house that was said to be cursed. The stories varied. Some said it was haunted by a young woman who had been murdered by her husband. Others claimed it was the site of an ancient evil, a portal to another dimension. Lily had listened politely, nodding and smiling, but inside she scoffed. They were just stories, folklore designed to scare children and outsiders. But now, as the wind howled and the house groaned around her, the stories came back to haunt her. She could almost hear the whispers of the villagers, their faces pale in the flickering candlelight. "She shouldn't be there," they whispered. "The house is cursed." Lily had found the photograph in the attic, tucked away in a dusty old trunk. It was a faded sepia image, a portrait of a family standing in front of the house. The parents stood stiffly, their faces serious, but the little girl in the middle was smiling, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Lily studied the photo, her gaze drawn to the little girl. There was something about her smile, something that sent a chill down Lily's spine. And then she saw it. Behind the family, in the shadows of the doorway, stood a figure. It was tall and slender, its features obscured by the shadows. But even in the dim light, Lily could see that its eyes were open, staring directly at the camera, at her. Lily shivered, a feeling of unease settling over her. She quickly put the photograph back in the trunk, slamming the lid shut, as if she could trap whatever evil it held inside. The storm raged on, relentless in its fury. Lily lay in bed, her eyes wide open, listening to the sounds of the house. The wind howled, the rain beat against the windows, and every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the timbers sent a shiver down her spine. Then she heard it, a noise, a soft thud, like footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Her heart pounded in her chest. She strained her ears, listening intently. Silence. Maybe it was just the wind, she told herself. But deep down, she knew it was something else. She got out of bed and crept towards the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the sliver of moon that peeked through the storm clouds. She took a deep breath and stepped out into the hallway. The hallway was long and narrow, the walls lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors. Their eyes seemed to follow Lily as she walked, their expressions a mixture of disapproval and disdain. She kept close to the wall, her hand trailing along the rough surface, as if seeking reassurance. The footsteps came again, closer this time. Lily froze, her breath catching in her throat. She could hear her heart pounding in her ears. Slowly, she turned, her eyes scanning the shadows that danced at the edge of her vision. There was something there. She could feel it, a presence cold and menacing. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, taking on a life of their own. Lily stumbled back, her hand reaching for the wall to steady herself. She had to get out of here. Lily turned and ran, her bare feet slapping against the cold stone floor. She didn't know where she was going. She just had to get away from the shadows, from the presence that she could feel closing in on her. She reached the end of the hallway and threw herself against the door, fumbling with the handle. It wouldn't open. She rattled the handle, but it was no use. She was trapped. She turned, her back pressed against the door, her eyes wide with terror. The shadows had followed her. They swirled around her closer and closer until they coalesced into a single terrifying figure. It stood before her, tall and slender, its features hidden in the shadows. But Lily could see its eyes. They glowed with an eerie light, cold and malevolent. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out.